We are going to start off from where we left off. So good morning once again and welcome back. I hope my audio is clear to all of you. Pranita, can you just give me a quick feedback, please?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
All right. Thank you so much. Good morning. So I will be sharing this particular case study for all of you to kind of go through, because this is a Harvard Business School case study and it is about a brand that we all are familiar with, and it's a globally successful brand also, YouTube. So YouTube for brands, case study as such, and then we will discuss it in a subsequent class as well. So what we have been seeing so far, in continuation with the practical examples that you have been looking at, we have seen a couple of examples from the marketplace, brands which are doing well, globally acclaimed marketeers. You have seen the presence of different brands, how brands are ranked, and the equity of brands, all of that. So here would be one formal example which we will take, which is to discuss about how branding has worked, or different brands are leveraging YouTube, right? So in the era of digital marketing, and more so about online marketing, how this particular portal or this particular brand has really made its mark across the years. It's very important to understand that we need to see the best practices of brands across the years, or how they have sustained themselves, how they have attuned themselves and customized themselves with the requirements of the marketplace, the agility that is required to play out in the marketplace with ever-changing needs, preferences, or whichever are the complexities that you think about. So the strategic aspect as well as the tactical aspects. So strategic brand management is something that is pertaining to your syllabus. And naturally, when the strategic marketing is understood very clearly, it sets out a clear roadmap for doing a very structured set of activities which will enhance or will increase the possibility of success in the marketplace, basically the effectiveness, right? So we will look at this case study. Along with this, let me just share one more. Tell me how this is pronounced. Okay, let me just share this. Yeah, somebody would like to share how it is pronounced? How is the name pronounced? Very famous brand?
Xiaomi.
Okay, Xiaomi. Lot of the ways, right? 1 minute. Let me just open the 1 second. And I will also be sharing another case, quick recap to look at a case to do with luxury brand positioning. Yeah, thank you so much, Pranita. So another article which I'll be sharing with all of you will be about the role of research basically in positioning brand as a sustainable proposition, luxury brand. I hope you're able to see this. Let me reshare it once again. So a couple of these readings will actually help you to understand and perhaps, give some food for thought for discussion as we look at perhaps how things have panned out for different kinds of brands. So on one hand, we saw a brand like YouTube with a mass appeal with different proposition. And then we'll look at different, mobile phone brands. And of course, the role of research in positioning luxury brands, because we are always talking about one thing, which is the brand customer connect. And more so, as the brand customer connect is inevitable, and it is an imperative requirement for any brand, especially so in the mass market, segment of products which are catering to people across the segment, fast moving consumer goods or low involvement consumer goods, or for example, high involvement purchases. So the role of luxury brands also become important, and there is a different set of marketing activities that would be required to position such a brand across the years, and to make it sustainable over time. So this is something that you will look at this article will share the views, and why we share such articles from Harvard Business Review or Harvard Business School is because that is one of the most acclaimed business school where the management thoughts globally accumulated with a very, very high standard, and whatever is happening across the world is almost available there. So you kind of get the best practices, you kind of get the idea or information about what is happening contemporarily relevant across the years. And should a student wish to kind of go back and see how the management thought has evolved over the years, management thoughts in all domains, you can always refer back to the Harvard Business School articles, which are available for all functions, be it HR, marketing, finance, operations, cross-domain, cross-functional, multidisciplinary. So this helps you to kind of understand the different imperatives or different kinds of activities that are required to position brands. So I'll be sharing this as well. You will need to have a pre-reading of these materials before we can discuss it, because it will not really be very relevant if any one of you in the class do not have a prior idea about what is there in the case or what is there in the article. So I would request you that once I share that with all of you, kindly ensure that you have a pre-reading and make notes about what are the points that we'll need to discuss. And if you are in the decision makers shoes, or if you are given a brand like say YouTube today, and there is a question in the interview or in any kind of interaction that you have for your placement interview or otherwise, how would you really approach that kind of a question? So as management students, is very important that while you are reading all the academic related subjects, it's important for you to assimilate everything, so that as a management professional, you come across as somebody who is a problem solver, who is solution centric in the sense that there is something that you can contribute to a company, to a business, and come out with some better idea about how to take things forward. It's not something that will definitely be a guarantee of success, because any kind of plans or activities that are made in real life marketing or in real life management scenarios are always replete with scenarios which can lead to successes as expected, as well as not so successful outcomes as would have been expected. But what do you learn from this not so successful outcomes is the learnings that would be valuable for the next step of the strategic management process, which means you kind of gain and set of feedbacks which will help you to correct or do a course correction, which perhaps would have been overlooked at the time of making the plan. So this kind of ongoing process of trying to envisage or have a vision about what you want to do, strategically make the plans with adequate set of information, or whatever are the complete set of information available at a given point of time, that an information might be generated by you through your own proprietary research, which is to do with your product or brand and connecting it with the market or gaining customer insights. It could also be a blend of information that you gather from secondary sources. Gather all of that and try to brainstorm and come up with a kind of idea about brand marketing. And in this context, we have been studying so far, which is in continuation with the previous class, that a company needs to be consumer centric in order to ensure that the brand customer connect is more meaningful. Right? So we've seen several examples. We are all using brands in our daily life or, across our lifestyles, wherein we are seeing that the successful brands are those who really think about the customer's need and really have propositions which make meaningful, conversation with the customer and thus engage them meaningfully. So the question which you have in front of your screen today is whether a customer centricity, or whether this approach or orientation of customer centricity is an integral aspect of a company. So the question is a company consumer centric? So which are the questions that need to be asked when this kind of a question is being asked? So there are certain sub questions. So you cannot just ask whether a company is consumer centric or not. So there are certain questions by which the answers to which will reveal the extent of consumer centricity, which could be in a range of not very consumer centric to very highly consumer centric, which means they're really open to getting the new ideas. Now, one thing you would have also noticed in the contemporary marketing space, with all the examples that we have all got exposed to, as we saw with different kinds of companies and their brands, is that companies would always try to ensure that their offerings, whether it is tangible or intangible, and named as brands, would always need to be something which is meaningful with the customer. So the first kind of question that is being asked is the company looking for ways to take care of you? So the first thing about marketing is need satisfaction. The first question here is also pertaining to whether the company is looking for ways to take care of you as a customer. The second thing is whether the company knows its customer well enough to differentiate between them, which means the market out there is not made of homogeneous entities, people who are the same, entities who are the same. So there are differences. The heterogeneity of the customers making up a marketplace or a market space is important to be identified, and one needs to understand that this is something to do with the fact that identifying the segments with different characteristics is a very, very critical component of marketing. So go back to the basics of marketing. The basics of marketing, which starts with need satisfaction, need, wants, demand. The second set has to do with identifying segments, targeting suitable segments as per the company's objectives, and positioning the company's offer for those segments that have been chosen to be targeted by the company. Now, when you look at segmentation, targeting, and positioning, the second question which comes here is about that aspect, which means we need to identify those variables by which you can differentiate between groups or between sets of customers, and also understand within certain groups what are the similar aspects. So which means the homogeneity aspects can be identified with certain variables. So you don't do segmentation, you are identifying segments. So for example, demographic segmentation, if you say. So we identify variables like gender, right? Age, income. And we say that these are variables by which we can identify differences in the groups of customers, and within a certain gender, there will be certain similarity, and the entirety of all these segments. For example, if you identify variables as gender or age, then you might have different groupings of gender. You can have different groupings based on the age categories. And what would happen is within a certain category, there will be some commonalities, characteristics which are similar and common among all the people who make up that segment. And there will be differences between the groups. So there will be homogeneity within a group and heterogeneity among groups. Now, all these groups, while they are going to be mutually exclusive, which means that your variables which you identify to identify the differences in customers should be such that while you're able to identify the differences, finally, collectively, all the possible ways by which these differences are identified should lead also to the fact that you're able to identify that all the groups put together become something which is collectively exhaustive. So which means if you have a group of customers and you identify based on gender, for example, male and female. So within the male category, there's a homogeneity, female category, there's a homogeneity, but collectively, both male and female comprise of the entire set of customers. Now, gender, as I said, male and female is very, very restrictive. Nowadays, we look at diversity in the gender classification also. So we have transgender, we have, the other gender. So we can say that the gender itself categorization has also taken a different kind of a, classification altogether. And we need to be inclusive, sensitive to the inclusiveness of that. Look at the age categories. So there could be different categories of age. Finally, within the age category, there will be similarity. For example, if you're going to say take age categories of below 18, the characteristics of people comprising that particular age category will have certain similarities. Above 18 years of age, there will be certain characteristics. But collectively, for example, if you are just going to have two set of grouping just for simplistic understanding, the example that we are considering is a very, very simplistic example. Say you want to classify the population or classify your market customers into two categories, below 18 and above 18. All right. And supposing you want to understand that how does the second point play out, which is to differentiate between them. So below 18 could be, the set of people that we normally would consider as, minors, or below the age, the so-called categorization of adults, and above 18 will be all those individuals who are categorized as adults in a certain nomenclature. Now, if there are only these two groups. So we are saying that homogeneity of below 18 people will be there, similar characteristic in that group. And there will also be a similarity in the other group, which is comprising of above 18 years. But collectively, so while the group members will not be common, so you cannot have an individual who is below 18 also and above 18 also, right? So there cannot be any kind of commonality. There cannot be any individual who is a common member of the group. So such is the way you identify variables in order to identify customers and differentiate between them. Now, while you're able to identify that there are groups which will become mutually exclusive, it would also mean that all the groups put together must also collectively be the composition of the entire set of customers, which means if you're having below 18 years and above 18 years as two groups, both these two groups put together should collectively be the set of customers that you have in our market. We have assumed in this case, please remember and don't forget, which is we have assumed that we are just making two basic classification of demographic classification based on age, wherein we are simplistically categorizing them into below 18 and above 18. Right? Right now, I think very simply to understand, you will have these kind of situations playing out. Although I'm talking about a variable like below 18 and above 18, and it might sound really simplistic, but if you see the vaccination status of the COVID, the pandemic which played out. So right now, today, we have vaccination for above 18 years, right? And we are yet to come out with vaccinations for below 18 years of age of individuals, right? So you do see that while we have a variety of ways by which we can use age to classify people in the market, and I just took an example of below 18 and above 18, and it might have been sounding to you very simplistic, very theoretical, but I just also have put across to you how, for example, with our vaccination drive, we in the current situation where COVID is a national pandemic or an international phenomenon right now, we are seeing that the vaccination has also been extended for various reasons, the way it has been developed. For basically, it started with above 45 years, set of citizens, and then it got extended into people who are also below 45, and gradually vaccinations also came in where people who were above the age of 18 till 45 were also allowed to be vaccinated. That kind of vaccination was also medicine was also introduced. And right now we are awaiting the stage when the vaccination also can be ready, or vaccines can be ready for use in the below 18 group, right? So I hope you are able to understand that when you talk about such consumer centricity, the second point, whether the company, so for example, even if you talk about pharma companies, right? Serum Institute or various vaccination or pharma companies and all, they also are going to be using these kind of questions in order to understand whether their medicines or pharmaceutical products are also relevant to their consumers. So the second question that is there on the screen, does the company know its customers well enough to differentiate between them, is as relevant to a product marketeer in the lifestyle space as it is applicable to a mass goods manufacturer, to a pharmaceutical company or any entity who's in the medical space, medical science space. So it's something that as long as you have a brand, which means you have named your offer for satisfying some need. Question number one, is the company looking for ways to take care of you? So as long as there is a need to be satisfied, and that need satisfaction is encapsulated in the form of an offer from a company for a set of customer, or for a customer or a set of customers, you do have brands in the picture. And therefore, the company needs to understand the customers well enough to differentiate between them. So what was it that I was elaborating for so long? I was elaborating on the fact that it is important for customers to be identified basis certain variables. So there are characteristics which will be there in the market. What companies would need to do is identify how you can find out the differences and similarities in the customers in the market, or your prospective customers in your market. All right. Now, some of the variables, so one of the variables we've been talking about is demographic variables. Similarly, there can be geographic variables, there can be psychographic variables, and you can also have behavioral variables. So identifying the different segments of customers is the first step in order to proceed to the next step, which is to identify which segments are you going to target. So like I said, the vaccine companies have been targeting people below above the age of 18, and currently they are in the process of developing and finalizing the vaccines meant for use in the below 18 category, right? So the third question therefore is someone accountable for customers in the company? So is it only the brand marketer? Is there somebody who is accountable for understanding the customer insights? So you will have different types of designations in companies. It could be the marketing manager, it could be a brand manager who's handling a particular brand, it could be the the entire team which is developing the customer insights and processing that information. And that leads to the fourth question, which is the company managed for shareholder value? Because finally, it should not be that the agenda of the company is just to make profits, which means the currency profits, dollar profits, rupee profits, euro profits, or whatever it is. If it is only in terms of gaining profits, which is the surplus from whatever that you're investing, then perhaps you will not be able to look at the big picture, which would mean to take a dual view of the short term as well as the long term, to look at the humane ways of marketing vis-a-vis a transactional set of marketing, to look at relationship marketing versus a one-time transaction marketing. So if you want to build a relationship with your customers, you want to build resonance, brand resonance in the market, you want to have loyalty of your customers, you will need to think long-term, you will need to think in a sustainable way. And finally, therefore, it is not imperative. These days, corporate governance norms have become also very strict, and corporate governance determines or mandates that you need to take care of customers, you need to take care of the society, you do need to ensure that your processes are very clean and transparent, and you need to follow the laws of the land very clearly. You should not harm the environment. You should operate in a way that you are carbon neutral, for example, or you contribute positively to the environment. So you need to focus on very many things apart from only the economic profit. So like we said, ITC brought in the concept of triple bottom line, which is economic profit, contributing to economic profit, contributing to the social sector, as well as contributing to the environmental sector, right? So there has to be, companies today are managed for more than shareholder value. And if you're doing these kind of activities on a long-term basis, which are in a sustainable manner, like we saw in Nike, if you remember, students, the day before yesterday, we were looking at examples of marketers, and we looked at Disney and Nike. If you remember, they were focusing on people, planet, and community, right? So naturally, when you have such a holistic marketing viewpoint or a holistic management viewpoint where everything matters, naturally profit is a natural outcome of that as well. But that is not going to be the only outcome. The fifth question, which therefore comes into the perspective, which is about consumer centricity of a company, is the company testing new customer offers and learning from the results? Which means, are you trying out newer variations? Are you evolving? Are you trying to be innovative enough to come up with new solutions? Now, do you remember what happened to Nokia, for example? What happened to this big company, which was at one point of time one of the biggest market leaders in the mobile phone space? What happened? What happened to Samsung, for example? What happened when Nokia was a market leader, and where was Samsung with its mobile phone offers? And what happened thereafter? What led to the downfall of Nokia? Was it something to do with the fifth point? Was the company testing enough new customer offers? Were they learning from the results? Was technology obsolescence an important influencer in their demise? Is technology the only thing which determines a customer's perspective to be considered? Is it something to do with the company culture also? Have you noticed in Nike's statement, Nike's CEO talking about in the impact report, if you recall, students, that they spoke about targets of 2025, which means you're thinking about a medium term. So it's not absolutely a short-term annual result. You're also thinking about something in 3 to 5 years. And of course, you're thinking of something in the long term as well. And what is it that also plays out in this function or in this kind of a perspective is that you try to find out that these things are going to be driven by people in your company. So it's people who's going to think about people, which means it's people within the company, your employees, your internal staff, who's going to be those people who are going to generate those things that are required in order to connect meaningfully with your customers. So people inside, thinking about people outside. So the fifth point is all about the fact that it's ultimately the knowledge base that you have within the company, the resources that are captured in your human resource skill, the human resource talent, the human talent that you have needs to be such that they can actually be implementing all of these that you see on the screen. So it's not actually technology per se, but who is going to develop the technology, who's going to upgrade that technology, who's going to use the technology, who's going to use the basic sciences and think about applications from the customer's point of view. Who's going to do that in your company? It's your people. Right? So the final thing about consumer centricity, when you look at all the 5 points on the screen, therefore, arises from understanding the basic responsibility of marketing, which is customer needs satisfaction, to the fifth question. So first, second, third, fourth, all questions getting answered. Finally, the fifth one is, are you continuously evolving as a company? Are you really setting yourself to test out new customer offers, which means, are you thinking of new ways to satisfy the customers? So I think all the companies that we have looked at during the last set of classes at various stages, seeing their videos, seeing their operations, you would have also appreciated, all of you, that customers have been the center focus of most of these companies that we've looked at. And whenever during the corporate history, there have been instances where companies have failed to keep these 5 questions in mind, it has led in some way or other in a near future to the demise of the company's existence in the market, right? So the next thing which therefore definitely comes in is linking that customer centricity to a more structured way of managing the customer relationship, which is in the form of CRM, customer relationship management. And in order to do that, of course, process-wise or infrastructure-wise, we do have a lot of enterprise resource planning softwares that are used in order to ensure that you can really, consolidate all the data points that are there, which tells a lot of story about customers coming into the company, leaving the company, their existence in the company, their journey in the company, or their insights, basically about customer insights. So customer could be any entity who has the need, and the need, possible satisfaction of the need could be done with the company's offers, right? So what is the CRM? Basically, to understand, now you can have a plethora of brands also, which can help you to do this CRM activities seamlessly. Different banks have different CRM softwares, different entertainment companies have different ways of garnering the CRM requirements. You have different FMCG companies which have these kind of CRM tools. You will have automobile companies and their service centers using different kinds of CRM tools. But the important factor is, what is this customer relationship management? So since you are studying strategic brand management, you need to understand that we have learned about 2 critical aspects. One is, you understand that the brands have equity, or they have an equity inbuilt into the brand based on what kind of demand or what kind of equity they can garner out of the customer base that they have in the market. So customer based brand equity is an important concept. So therefore, customer is an integral part of the picture. Now, customer relationship management, therefore, is a natural aspect that you need to consider. So what is a customer relationship management? It is basically when you are using companies' data systems and applications to track customer activity or consumer activity and manage the customer interactions with the company. So which basically means that it is comprising of a set of systems, processes, right, which will ensure that the right kind of data can be captured, or data needs to be captured. Now you can have a lot of data being generated, especially in the connected era space as we are in now. We are having lots of data to deal with. We have lots of fields. Imagine if you were to put all the fields of the data on an Excel file, to be very simplistically illustrating a point, you will have multiple columns of any data. So supposing you want to track how many people have visited your website, that website tracking data will yield huge amounts of data every second. right? So imagine how much of data is getting collected by any company at any point of time from any of their points of contact with the customer. A bank could think about data collection from its ATMs. It could think about data collection from its net banking software. It could also look at the website traffic. It could look at different kinds of interactions or the kinds of transactions that their card users are making in the market. So there's a huge amount of data that is actually present. Now, to make sense of the data is actually the most important and effective part of CRM. So you could have multiple data points, but what do you make out of this data? So capturing the data system, the data is an important aspect, and you do need robust data systems to do that. And then you will need to look at the applications in which you can track consumer activity. And then you can also think about how you can enhance it. So of course, nowadays we have a lot of these chatbots and a lot of these data collection points happening. And then you do have a lot of data analysis happening, sentiment analysis happening. And then people are doing all of these in a very automated way. You're using, artificial intelligence, you're having machine learning, you are using a lot of computer applications, and you're coming up with a lot of real-time analysis, such that when you're searching for something on the internet, the software also tells you similar, set of suggestions, or you're searching for a product in an online marketing e-commerce website. The site also suggests certain more things to you based on whatever it is that you're searching. So how intelligent these systems have become. But nothing can be more intelligent than the human brain also. So what we need to look at is using these customer relationship management tools. One needs to understand, yes, absolutely, Ashil, I do get your question. Yes, search engine optimization could also be an example. It is a tool that you're using in order to ensure that perhaps your website traffic can be more meaningful, can be enhanced, number one, can be more meaningful, and can be more customized. Yes, to improve customer interaction. Excellent. Thank you so much, Ashil. So Ashil has, sent me this question. I think you're not able to see, all of you have not been able to see this. I'll just post it on this. Ashil has posted it directly, so that's why it's not visible to everybody. Students, you can have a look at the question that Ashil has put in. Thank you so much. I appreciate your question and your curiosity, right? Yes. So that also helps in the subsequent point, which is we are talking about customer equity or customer equity. So there are a couple of guidelines. Actually, basically a lot of companies, we use customer equity, or we use different guidelines to manage our business proposition for making sure that this is something which is really very meaningful. And so to maximize customer equity, there are certain pointers. What are some of the pointers? Invest in highest value customers first. Right? So there are a lot of these concepts, 80-20 concept, which means focus most of your efforts with those customers who are giving you the maximum kind of, profits. And typically it will be 20% of the customers in your company who yield the most profits, and then the rest of the customers actually take care of the rest. So you need to give naturally, if they're contributing highest to the profit, the priority to service them comes first. So naturally keep your highest valued customers satisfied and delighted, so that they do not switch or they do not change the service provider. Second point would be to develop customer equity, would be transform product management into customer management. So don't be myopic, as Ted Levitt used to say, Theodore Levitt used to say, as the myopic, don't be short-sighted, and don't only focus on the product per se. Don't think of developing only products and newer products, but think about what solution has to be provided to the customer. So always think about customer needs, and I think the subsequent things will follow. Like if you see Jeff Bezos and Amazon's story, it started off as a book selling, platform, but gradually certain things also were in place. Like he ensured that ratings from customers should be an integral part of the e-commerce platform when he introduced it. And from there, he realized that whenever customer ratings are also included to reflect how customers were satisfied or not so satisfied with the purchases or with the quality of the products, that also ensured that there was a sustainable feedback process flowing in, such that people started believing the credibility of the offer from Amazon grew. And of course, over the years, Amazon, like you've seen in the logo of Amazon, we had discussed earlier also, we saw in that interbrand website, Amazon, now you have all types of products. That's why that A to Z and that arrow which is there. So you will see that product management, that focus should be transformed from a company from product management to customer management. See what the customer wants and integrate your management towards that. For example, in our banking and financial services institutions, we normally talk about ensuring that customers must have more than 2 to 3 products bought from us. They must say, for example, in the banks, we used to focus on the fact that not only should they be our savings account customers, but we should be able to, motivate them and persuade them and make sense to them such that they also perhaps when they need to buy a car, they take the auto loan from us. Okay, when they would need to have a little bit of money, perhaps to finance something small, they can take personal loan from us. If they have to buy a house, they should avail of home loan from us. All right, if they have to buy something to or for example, if they have to put in money in safe deposits, they should look at fixed deposit from us, right? So there were various kinds of products that were there from the banks, and we were always very keen to understand that these are just not products for us, but they are meant to fulfill a solution. And the more we were fulfilling the solution, we understood. That is why cross-selling is a very important concept realistically in the market today, as it was, say 20 years back also, but it has been more so relevant in the last 10 to 15 years, because you understand that cross-selling is just not enhancing the profitability of your company because you sold more products to a customer, but because you understand that your customer has multiple needs. And do you as a company have those many different types of products and services which could meet his or her need? Now, please understand. Now, a customer, definitely the basic needs would be food, shelter, clothing, right? And you're a bank. Now, you're not going to say that, yes, now I'm going to manufacture salt also and sugar also and, rice and wheat and all of that. No, we're not talking about that. But we're saying that when customers think about security needs, they want to think about investment needs. Do I have those multiple sets of solutions which can be there and which I would make sure that my customers know about it, such that supposing I have a set of people for whom we have opened salary accounts, right? When employees work in a company, they receive salaries, right? So there will be a salary account which their employers would open for them. So now supposing you have opened the salary accounts with a bank. Now say I'm talking about a bank that I've worked with, HDFC Bank. Now when you open a salary account with HDFC Bank, salary account is a form of savings account. Now when you open a savings account for a customer, the bank has many more solutions than only a savings account, right? It has current accounts for businesses. It has fixed deposit options of various tenures and interests. It has life insurance, which it takes from a third party. The bank also has, auto loan products. It has home loan products. It has personal loan products. HDFC, we also have credit cards. So what happens is you have so many things that are there. Now you start thinking, the second point, you start thinking from the point of view of the customer. You say that the customer, as far as the financial aspects are concerned, they have various kinds of needs, and these needs need to be reflected into the fact that these would have to be fulfilled today or tomorrow, or whenever the customer thinks about such needs, do they really think about you? Do they think that this bank, HDFC Bank, is a bank which can fulfill its need? Because if the people from HDFC Bank, if bankers like us are not going to be sensitive to the requirements of our customers, then when our customers would feel the need for such solutions, say they need a personal loan, or they need an auto loan, or they need a housing loan, and the banker from HDFC has not been sensitive to understand and explore these needs, the customer may just go to some other bank who may have approached them, or may go to any other bank because of the proximity of the bank to his house or office or somebody that he knows, right? So who gains? The marketeer, if you want to gain with the customer, you need to think about your customer's solution. So think about customer management. Think about how you're going to solve the needs of the customer. And that's how basically even in a bank things have worked out in terms of bringing out newer products and mandating it with the bankers and the customer relationship managers within the bank, saying that you do need to cross-sell, which means you need to sell more than one type of product to the customer. And the newer variations of, say, credit cards, newer variations of fixed deposits, newer variations of personal loan, newer variations of different investment options that any institution comes up with, any marketing institution comes up with, is to understand what is required in the marketplace. And who's there in the market? Customers. Third point, Consider how add-on sales and cross-selling can increase customer equity. Then you start thinking that once I have kept, which means you cross-sold. Remember the second point, you cross-sold products. You are doing cross-selling in order to retain the customer. Then you think about the third point, which is this going to build additional sales? Is this going to build additional profit opportunities? Is this also going to ensure that I have not only enhanced revenue option, but also it is a possibility of or it is one of the important ways by which you retain customers, customer retention, because it's 5 times generally understood that 5 times more costly to acquire a customer than retain, because new customer acquisition will have to be done on various points, which is a lot of marketing efforts has to go in. And if you are not able to, and if it's like a leaking bucket, like a bucket which has a hole underneath, and you keep trying to fill the bucket with water, you will need to run the tap continuously, but because there's a leak in the bucket and the water is leaking out, your bucket will never be full. But if this bucket was a whole bucket without a leak or without a point where it was leaking water, you would have been able to fill a bucket, say a 10 or 15 liter bucket would have been filled with 10 or 15 liters. But if you have a leaking bucket, you will never be able to fill a bucket with 15 liters of water with a capacity, the bucket having a capacity of 15 liters, you wouldn't have been able to fill it with only 15 liters because continuously your the water is actually going out of the bucket. So if you are not very careful, you might be acquiring a lot of customers. The top line can be very, very fantastic, but you might also be losing a lot of customers because of lack of efforts in retaining customers. So it's very important to understand that when you cross-sell products, you are also helping the company to increase the revenue points, and the customer also becomes more loyal to the company and more attached, because it's difficult for them to sever the ties with the company. So the more products you have with a company, the greater likelihood is that the customer will stay, right? So it's a very, very good retention tool. The fourth point, look for ways to reduce acquisition cost, which could mean using nowadays, for example, we use the net, we use online connectivity so that the cost of connect with the customers are reduced. Online ordering reduces inventory cost for retailers. And as well, the moment you are on platforms like Amazon or you yourself have a website presence, what happens? Customers are able to see your product, search for products, evaluate products, and purchase what they feel is the best. You could have select retail outlets, you could have select branches wherein if customers require, they can visit. For example, ATMs that are there in banks, they ensure that you have sufficient place wherein people can go and do their basic banking activities if they require it. So your people inside the branch are not really hassled up or engaged in dealing with mundane routine transactions of customers, and they can more be gainfully utilized to handle customer inquiries or customer servicing issues, critical customer servicing issues, which can lead to greater outcomes relating to customer equity. All right, having telecalling centers, call centers in order to handle such calls, or even having telecall centers not only to handle service calls, but in case somebody is really curious to become a customer of a company, they can also register and they can take it forward, right? So you can use various technologically enabled services, IT enabled services, in order to ensure that your customer acquisition cost can be decreased to an extent. So the use of agents, the use of dealers and distributors wherever applicable can also be used, so that the direct cost of acquisition of customers can be reduced for the company. The next point is relate branding to customer equity. So you need to understand that branding finally contributes to building the base of customers who create the value for the brand. Next point, monitor the intrinsic retain ability of your customers. What is the monitoring the intrinsic retain ability of your customers? Understand what is it that keeps your customers with you. What do you think keeps customers with a company? If you're running a company, what do you think customers will, will make the customers be with the company? Let me give an example, or let me ask you with a very, very simple example. Supposing you have a tea shop, okay? What do you think will keep customers coming back to the tea shop? Put in your answers in the chat box. Tea shop. You want another example? It's a grocery store. Yeah, grocery store can have any name. It's a brand. So let us talk about the intrinsic retainability of your customer. What do you think will make a customer keep coming back to the grocery store? That is retaining the customer. When the customer keeps coming back to the tea stall or tea store, or coming back to the grocery store time and again. Yeah, Ashil, thank you. Tea, it has quality and cost. Absolutely. What is quality of tea? It could be the warmth of the tea, the taste of the tea. It could be how fast they are servicing it, and what is the cost of the tea. Is it 2 rupees? Is it 5 rupees? Do you serve full? Do you serve cut, half cut tea? All of that, right? A lot of the things are there. Absolutely, Santosh. Thank you. Price and ambience. Absolutely. So it could be price and ambience of the tea. So you could have a 5 rupee cup of tea outside in a tea stall. You could have the same tea in a 5-star hotel for, what do you think it will cost in a 5-star hotel? And still there are people who will go back to the 5-star hotel to have the 200 rupees or 250 rupees cup of tea, right? What is taking them? It's what Santosh is actually talking about here, ambience. So sometimes it's just not the price per se, it's also the ambience factor. What will make people come back to a grocery store? Could it be the combination of those features as well? The quality and the cost and the price and the ambience? Would it be that as well? It could be that those particular features as well, right? So which makes customers keep coming back to the service provider. Last but not the least is consider writing separate marketing plans or even building 2 marketing organizations for acquisition and retention efforts, which means customer acquisition can be a different set of team members who are clearly focused. Their agenda is very clearly in seeking out new customers, new prospects that they have to meet, have appointments. So you can have a telecalling team which sets out appointments for your salespeople, and you can have these salespeople go for different meetings to acquire the customers. What is the other team that can be there? It could be the customer service team, customer servicing team, whose responsibility will be to be given the responsibility to service effectively the existing customers that would have been acquired by the acquisition team, right? The agenda of such a team also could be that not only should you keep these customers happy, delighted, but also have organic growth from these customers, which means you can also think about enhancing the service or the product sales from these customer bases. That means they would have already been acquired by the company by a set of people in the acquisition team, and the customer service executives or customer service managers who are given the responsibility for retention efforts are also given the additional charge that not only these customers must keep on ordering from the company, but there could be organic growth in the sales that happens to such existing customers, right? So in every almost every industry today, you do have these set of customer acquisition team being a separate team who also have responsibility to cross-sell more products or cross-sell the products to the new customers. But also the customer service team, which is the retention team, also has the responsibility to cross-sell. So they could have been acquired, customers could have been acquired for, say, savings account product, but the customer service team, once they come into the picture, they can also keep in contact with the customers to see if they require a personal loan, would they require a credit card. And depending on the different types of customers, for example, in the financial and in the financial services, banking, financial services, and investment space, again, based on the first point, the highest value customers, you can actually classify your customers based on the different types of net worth that they have, the kind of relationship value that they have with the company, and decide different types of marketing strategies for the customers. So you can have retention efforts made in such a way that you meaningfully connect with your customers in terms of whatever they need. So if you have high net worth individuals in a bank, customers who are really very, very rich and they have crores of rupees in your bank, and they also have not only savings and bank account, but they have businesses, then you can explore, if you have not already done, to make sure that they open current accounts for their businesses. if they have, the customers have trusts which they have in their family name or something, you can ensure that the trust account can also be opened with your bank. You can think of providing business loans. If the customer is also having small medium enterprises, you can look at providing SME loans. You can provide various kinds of other loans should they require it. If the customer in their lifetime, then now they require, for example, education requirement is there, maybe they require education loans for their children. So you can then talk about the education loan facility that is there from your bank to them. So what happens is the retention effort is more in understanding the same thing, maintain customer centricity, understand the customer needs, understand what they require, fulfill your customer needs. And one essential aspect of all this is the human interaction. The human interaction meaning the representative from the marketing company or the company who is marketing the products and the customer. This connect has to be maintained effectively. And this customer connect cannot be interrupted or disrupted if any employee of the bank or if any employee of the company leaves. That's why the importance is given to this software, the customer relationship management software, which captures all the details of the customer, so that should there be a change in the staff who's dealing with the customer relationship management, there is no interruption for the customer. The customer can feel and perceive seamless, continuous service from the company, because the records of the customer is already safe with the company. The company has all the records and all the correct information, so that in case somebody in the service department is going to be changed, because people can have exits, people can leave the company, there can be mortality, people may expire, may die, and so the position will have to be replenished with another person. So the person who comes in place should not go back to the customer and say, hey, I really don't know about you. Can you just tell me who you are and all of that? So that doesn't help. So that's why keeping the records of the customer is very important. Complete, accurate, relevant, timely records are needed to be maintained. And that's why the customer's data needs to be maintained very robustly with the company. Again, you need to understand data privacy is a very, very important aspect as well. You would have seen about crisis which has occurred with Facebook or with HSBC also long back, wherein it was found that due to certain internal lack of due diligence and certain unethical practices, which for a brief while which happened, there were certain malpractices leading to customer data breach, which means customers' data was taken out of the company. So it's very important that when you have customer data in your company, you will need to ensure, the last point, you will need to ensure that your retention efforts while using data of the customers, they must also ensure the confidentiality and the privacy of the data that you acquire of your customers, which means the privacy of the data points that you collect. You should be very sensitive to the requirements, which is to keep the data of your customers confidential. They should be private only to the company's use. You must not sell the customer data to a third party. All right. Otherwise, what happens? People will not trust the company. That's why there are various kinds of ways by which you protect the privacy and the safety of the customers. Last but not the least is that whenever you have issues which will lead to transactions or connections between customer and the company, you will need to ensure sometimes it should be beyond human interaction. Like, for example, when customers need to interact with their banking companies and they need to do transactions, there are different 1-factor, 2-factor level of authentication of their online monetary transaction that is done with the help of systems. So you do not have a human interface when you are trying to use your credit card or your debit card, or you are trying to do net banking and you want to purchase something online. The OTP, the one-time password which is generated, is not generated by a human being, and it's not spoken and given to you. Right? That is why the cautionary advisories which come from the Reserve Bank of India, from the banks also, because online transaction is another very, very sensitive area, because it pertains to financial transactions, and the safety of such transactions is very important. Otherwise, the credibility of the entire system will go down. So the 1-factor or 2-factor level of authentication is built in such that whenever somebody initiates, even if it is the customer initiating the transaction, there will have to be a final authentication of the transaction via passwords, which can be sent by text or would be sent in a kind of a voice recording, but it is always automated. Automation ensures, and the randomization of these OTP generation ensures the safety that is required. So what happens is systems, the use of systems, the use of processes, the use of database is very, very important in a entire system of ERP solution leading to the establishment of the customer relationship management system. Because why is it important? Because customer equity development for branding requires a very seamless, yet very attached, yet very, very specialized way of dealing with customer acquisition and customer retention efforts. I hope that is clear to all of you. So with this, we come to the sum of the customer equity. And this customer equity basically is the sum of the lifetime values of all the customers. So how much they can acquire, the customers can actually give business to the entity, company across the entire lifetime. And it's for one customer. Similarly, you multiply the lifetime value or you sum it up for all different customers. Each customer will have different lifetime values. Customer lifetime value is affected by revenue and by the acquisition cost of the customers. So customer acquisition cost is very high. Therefore, we need to retain customers and we need to cross-sell. We do all of these, and the basic thing is that customer equity, consists of three components, which is value equity, brand equity, and relationship equity. So we will stop at this today. And if you have any doubts, you can definitely get across through the LMS. Any quick question that you may have on whatever we've covered till now, you can share with me. So what we've done in the class today so far is to look at the CBB model that we had looked at yesterday. We understood the customer lifetime value creation. We understood the consumer centricity points, that is, how is a consumer centric, how is a company considered to be consumer centric, 5 questions. Elaboration on that, we looked at customer relationship management. We looked at different points which looks at customer equity building, right? So with this, we'll close off today's class, and I thank all of you joining on time, participating, and I'll meet you in the next class. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.